This is David, and welcome to this week's live stream on the first day of December. It's great to have everyone here. If you haven't logged in yet and told us your name and where you're from and what you're studying, please feel free to do so now. On tap for today is a follow up to a previous live chat in which we discussed some commas, and some questions came up as to where exactly commas go when it comes to a string of adjectives. So for today's live stream, I wanted to begin first with an overview of adjectives, and then to talk about, after we've done that overview, where punctuation plays a role in the different positions in which you can find adjectives. As you can tell, it's 12 o'clock here in Savannah, Georgia, and they're testing the emergency alarm. What a wonderful thing for us. Snark, of course. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will talk about what's going on here. The first thing we want to talk about are the three places where adjectives can be put. And those three places are the attributive position. This is where the adjective comes directly before the noun, as in the blue sea, the old man. Those adjectives can also be placed after the noun, but they must be preceded by a linking verb whenever they come in the predicative position or the predicate of the sentence, the second half of the sentence that is formed by a linking verb. So we have like the sea is blue and the man is old. Same adjectives, except one is in the attributive position in front of the noun. The other is in the predicative position, which comes after a linking verb. Now there is a set of adjectives that come directly after the noun, and those are called the postpositive adjectives. And some examples are in institutionalized type names like Surgeon General, or in this case, Attorney General. The general is the postpositive adjective because coming after the noun. We also see it in phrases something like something being useful. We say something useful would be for you to, or something useful was offered by the committee. Again, the adjective comes directly after the noun, something in this case, and that is the postpositive position. Let's take a look at a few more examples of these just to kind of cement them in our minds. In the attributive position, we have the happy children, the energetic girl, but to put them in the predicative position, they must come after a linking verb. The children seem happy, linking verb seem, predicate adjective happy. The girl feels energetic, the linking verb feels, the predicate adjective energetic. Then we have the postpositive adjectives. Everyone present should get out their notebooks, and those responsible will be held accountable. Notice that everyone present is more or less a contraction for everyone who is present. Those responsible is more or less a contraction for those who are responsible. A little kind of hint for recognizing postpositive adjectives. Here's a little quiz that we can take together. Let's see who's here to answer such a quiz. The green door opened slowly. Green is the adjective. Slowly is an adverb. So in this case, the adjective placement is in the attributive position, coming directly before the noun. This stretch of water is dangerous. Stretch of water is the noun phrase or the subject of the sentence. Is the linking verb. Therefore, dangerous is a predicate adjective, and it comes in the predicative position. The shareholders present voted against the motion. Shareholders, noun. Present is that post-positive adjective that comes directly after the noun. Jan feels ill. That is similar to the construction Jan feels sick. Jan feels poorly. Jan feels out of sorts. Feels is the linking verb we often use to indicate our physical condition. And when ill comes after it, which is an adjective, it is in the predicative position. A larger than normal pay increase. Pay increase is the two-word noun, and larger than normal is the adjective phrase, which comes in the attributive position directly before the noun pay increase. Okay, in the attributive position. Some other aspects of adjectives, there are some that only come in the attributive position. And it would be a mistake for you to place these nouns, these adjectives, in anywhere but the attributive position. For example, my elder sister is a pilot. Elder is one of the kind of older words in English, and it is limited to the attributive position. Unlike the word older, you can say, my sister is older. You can say, my older sister is a pilot. Older can go in either the attributive or the predicative position, but elder cannot. You cannot say, my sister is elder than me. It must be older. Some adjectives can be used only after verbs and therefore come only in the predicative position. So we have the baby is asleep. You cannot say the asleep baby. You must say a sleeping baby. The adjective asleep comes only after a linking verb. The ship remained afloat. Notice that both of these adjectives that can only be used in the predicative position both begin with a. They're kind of a old English case that made adjectives out of verbs. You can say the floating ship, but you cannot say the afloat ship, because the adjective afloat can only come after a verb. Some adjectives come before verbs object. I'll get the car ready. I'll get the car washed. I'll get the car charged. Those adjectives can only come after a verb's object in this kind of construction. I'll paint the kitchen yellow. I'll paint the kitchen blue. I'll paint the kitchen, orange. Can only come after a verb's object. Kitchen here is the object of the verb paint, and car is the object of the verb get. One of the helps for you when it comes to adjectives is this kind of handy chart. This chart is not true 100% of the time. There are exceptions to it. However, for anyone studying attributive adjectives or that list of adjectives before noun, whenever you have that kind of phraseology, this is a good guide to how it goes. There is size, age, shape, color, origin, and material. So if you wanted to say that a horse is white, a horse is old, and a horse is fat, you would have to say a fat, old, white horse. You could not say a white, old, fat horse. You could say it, but anyone listening to it would say, what's wrong with those adjectives? They're not quite in the order that I expect, because these 6 slots for adjectives have been internalized by native English speakers. And your choices are to, at the beginning, kind of memorize the order and practice them until they become more or less internalized for you as a English language learner or non-native speaker. If you wanted to say something about a sweater that is gray, comes in the size extra large, and its fabric is wool, you'd have to say an extra large gray woolen sweater. For Spanish boots, you would have to say, you can't say Spanish new boots. You have to say new Spanish boots to have the kind of recognizable flow for native speakers. In this case, boots is a non-countable, uncountable noun, so therefore there is no article before it. So looking at this chart, here's a kind of little test for you. There's this cat, and you want to say the following things about the cat. You want to talk about its origin. It's from Siam, what used to be called Siam. Now, therefore it's a Siamese cat. You want to talk about its size. It's not fat, it's skinny. You want to talk about its color. It's striped. So according to our chart here, there's a very clear order in which you must place those. You must place size first, a skinny. You must place color next, striped. And you must place origin after that. So it would be a skinny, striped Siamese cat. For office building is a two-word noun. If you wanted to say it's oblong, if you want to say its color, obsidian or black, if you want to say its age, this is the order in which you must put them. And since old comes first, you would begin with an old, oblong shape comes next, color, obsidian, office building. An old oblong obsidian office building. An old oblong gray office building. A new square black office building. And all of those you've got age, shape, and coming first. Let's see. What I would recommend that you do with this chart, take a noun and then just generate, as I did here, 4, 5, 2 or 3, however many you want to play with, adjectives. And then practice putting those adjectives in the slots specified in a chart like this until it kind of becomes second nature to you. If you want to do some more practice of that later in the chat, we will. Okay, now we get back to that original subject that got us going on this whole adjective rant, and that is the punctuation of adjectives. And here we're going to be talking about punctuation mainly of attributive adjectives that come in a series before the noun. So, commas are found when you have adjectives that are providing similar information. For example, in this sentence, the adjectives are providing physical information or physical description. The slope is steep. That's a physical attribute. The slope is slippery. That's also a physical attribute. Therefore, those adjectives would be separated by a comma. Here, we'll extend the notion a little bit more. Here, all three of those adjectives refer to the financial status of that project. The project was expensive. The project was poorly planned. The project was wasteful. And therefore, its performance or its financial performance was quite poor. So those three adjectives must be separated by commas. I will point out that these adjectives, when they are correlative like this, can be switched around. A poorly planned, expensive, and wasteful project. Those commas indicate that you can more or less switch them around. They belong in the same category. Another rule, commas can be dropped before short common adjectives. A tall, dark stranger, a dark and stormy night, a big red ball. What's the name of the cartoon character? Blink the Big Red Dog. I forget the name of that dog in that cartoon. Short common adjectives in the series do not have to have a comma. Commas are not used between adjectives that are not correlative. In other words, they don't give the same information. They give different information. So the woolen dress is attractive. The woolen dress is traditional. The dress is woolen. So we've got, age, tradition, attractive, shape, a woolen material. And each of those gives a separate item of information and therefore are not separated by commas. Let's look at another example. Here we have a forgery. That forgery is clever, and that forgery was done in oil. Clever and oil are completely different from each other, and therefore there is no comma between them. Just as attractive is completely different than traditional, and traditional is completely different than woolen and attractive. They are providing distinct streams of information, unlike steep and slippery for slope, and expensive, poorly planned, and wasteful for project. And they're certainly not short and common adjectives. You probably already know this one if you're of the intermediate or advanced levels, and that is commas are not used after numbers or other determiners. Like 10 is a number, and so green bottles. So 10, although it's an adjective, it is a number, and therefore it is not followed by a comma. Same for a determiner like these, those. Because it is a determiner, although it is an adjective, it is not followed by a comma. So that's it on the slideshow. Let's take now some questions that we have. We have Ali Akbar. Hello, Ali. Please tell us where you're from and what you're majoring in. Are you on the thesis level or dissertation level or undergraduate level? And any questions that you have. Same for Salama. Salama writes, I'll put your quote up, Salama. Hello, Dr. David. I've been doing an exam today. By the way, that would be I have done an exam today. Been is a perfect tense, and this is the simple past. You've done it. Now, if you were still in the process of doing your exam, it would be I have been doing an exam today, or if you've recently completed it. I used your platform because it came the same subject essay. Oh, okay. So you're studying the essay. I think I remember your comment in which I shared with you some videos. Well, you're welcome, Solomon, and thank you for coming by, and thank you for sharing those very generous comments. And please, Salama, if you have any more questions or requests, please go right ahead and put them in the chat. Brandon asked, I'll put your question up, Brandon. Can you say a steep and slippery slope instead of saying steep, slippery? Yes, you can, because they are correlative adjectives. In other words, they are providing the same kind of information. If you can put that comma in there, you can put in the and. So the answer to your question, and thank you for it, Brandon, the answer is yes. Let me say hello to Brandon. Brandon's from California and is a bilingual speaker of English and likes Chopin. And Danielle Marino, How you, Danielle? Oh, excuse me, Daniel. I'm sorry. We have a Danielle who often comes in, Daniel. So please forgive me for that. I will stop sharing this screen. We'll get back to this chat. Danielle, I'm sorry, Daniel. This is going to be a real challenge for me throughout this chat. Yeah, Daniel, that's an interesting construction. I hope everyone can see it. Despite not studying, she did well or went. Yeah, she did well in the test. Despite not studying is a prepositional phrase, and it is used as an introductory element in the sentence. In any group of words that come before the subject of a sentence can be set off with a comma. So you wrote, despite not studying. You could also write, after studying all night, comma, she did well on the exam. But any group of words like studying all night, despite not studying, uh, because of her intense studying, comma, she did well on the exam. All of those are examples of introductory phrases and clauses that can and should be set off by a comma. Thank you, Daniel. I'm sorry. I'm very, very sorry about calling you that. Okay, here we have Ahmed Mohammed. Also a regular. Thank you for dropping by again, Ahmed. Ahmed said, thanks, Dr. David. This was very helpful. I would like to post content like in your YouTube. Yes, please. Thank you very much for that, Ahmed. After we end this broadcast, YouTube automatically makes a video out of this stream. And so you will see that video in your alerts if you have alerts initiated for my channel, and you will be able to go and add whatever contents. But feel free to add them here, Ahmed, and any questions also that you have. Okay, other questions about what you guys are doing and going through right now? Oh, Leslie asked a question. Oh, that's a good question, Leslie. If Leslie asked the question, can you say I did an exam? You more likely would be understood if you were in Britain or the UK. That is more of a British locution than it is an American locution. Although in America, we often say, do you want to do lunch? Or let's do a meeting. I did a meeting with the staff. So when it comes to exams, I don't think that is as common in American English as it is in British English. I'm not sure about other forms of English. By the way, the largest group of English speakers in the world is India. Of course, the origin of the English they speak is British English, but over the decades, that form of English has evolved into their own Indian dialect of English. It's the largest English dialect in the world. Yes, it is more colloquial. Yes, exactly, Leslie. Good point. Leslie, are you from America? Are you from the UK? From Canada? Because I think Canadian English is probably closer to British English than it is to American English. Daniel, yes, absolutely. We're at the point, Daniel. Daniel asked, can I ask something off topic? Really, there at this point in the chat, Daniel, there's nothing off topic. Except maybe politics and religion. So please feel free to ask. And I will have a drink. Back to what Leslie said. Leslie lives in Virginia. Leslie, the dividing line between colloquial and formal, and tell me if you find this true as well, is a line that shifts constantly according to the decade that you're in, more or less. It also something that seems colloquial with one group could be used formally with another group. Yeah, that area of colloquialisms, formal, informal speech, that's a really, really tough one. It really is. I lived in Virginia for half of my childhood. I lived in Virginia Beach for 8 years, and I lived in Farmville, Virginia, outside of Richmond for 5 years. Daniel, thank you for asking that question. As you all see, Daniel says it's frowned upon to start a sentence. Daniel, it is not frowned upon to begin a sentence with a conjunction by anyone outside of academia. For some reason, that rule became percolated in academia, but it has absolutely no cachet, no currency outside of academia. In the world of professional writing, outside of academic journals, beginning sentences with conjunctions is just another way of adding a transition between sentences. Instead of however, you can use but. Instead of also at the beginning of the sentence, you can use and. So I would add that from my perspective as a teacher who's been teaching about 30 years. It happened. Why did it happen, Daniel? I'll take a wild guess here. Academicians love to feel like they're in an exclusive club. And so many of the rules that they set up and traditions they set up are good ones in that they kind of preserve the shape of academia and allow discourse to take place in a certain way. However, some of the rules are there just for club purposes, just so they can discriminate against those who are and who aren't a member of the club. Mukesh is from India. Hello, Mukesh. You are a speaker of the largest English dialect in the world. Oh, Leslie's from Reston. I used to run races up in Reston, kind of up in the getting close to the Washington D.C. area. When I lived there, Reston was still kind of rural. I think it's pretty much urban now, isn't it, Leslie? Daniel lived in Richmond. Oh, great little southern town. I lived about 40 miles outside of Richmond in a small community called Farmville, which is actually the home of two nice liberal arts colleges, Longwood College for women and Hampden Sydney College for men. And I taught at Hampden Sydney for 5 years. You're welcome for the answer, Daniel. Thank you for the question. Here we have a question from Brandon. In school writing, you're allowed, it depends upon the teacher and the class, Brandon. If you're in a class and you have a teacher who is really sincere about academic writing, who takes a very formal approach and inflexible approach to writing, I would not use it. I might just out and out ask the person, what is their personal preference over beginning a sentence with but and or and? I just ask them. And You might also want to have an article or two handy and kind of circle all the sentences that begin with but and to kind of buttress your case. But remember, and I said this last week, and it bears repeating, there are no rules in writing. The audience rules. I should be saying there are no fixed rules in writing. Rules come and go depending upon the audience. And that's certainly the case for you, Brandon, with a teacher who may accept or allow but and used as transition words as opposed to conjunctions. Okay, my parents were teaching at VCU. Oh, yeah, I went to several functions at VCU. It was a small college back then. Now, of course, it's huge. It's a Division I school. And then you moved back to Brazil. Oh, Brazil. I spent several weeks in Brazil, diving with the economic ambassador to the United States. I was once the executive editor of Scuba Diving magazine, and the ambassador was an avid scuba diver. So he took me down to Brazil for 2 weeks. We started in Recife, and then went all the way down to Rio, and then what's the big megalopolis after Rio? Forget the name of it. We kind of dove a lot of places. We also went to Fernando de Noronha, which is like the hidden jewel for all scuba divers. Leslie, you're stationed at Fort Lee. Cool. Yeah, Fairfax has gotten large and urban. So you're only 12 miles off, so you're right in the middle of all of it, Leslie. You're absolutely right in the thick of it. Brandon says, thanks, that was the biggest retcon. I'm sorry, Brandon, I apologize. I do not know what a retcon is. Oh, Brandon, yes. Brandon writes, so the rules are basically determined by the grader? To some extent, that is exactly correct, Brandon. Not fully, but yes, when it comes to some of these finer points of language, they are very much a personal preference. That is correct. Now, supposedly, your graders give you grading rubrics, and those grading rubrics are a way of applying standards in a more or less standardized, methodical way. Now, if your grader is not providing rubrics, then you might want to ask for one in a polite way, simply by saying, hey, sir, madam, before turning in this next assignment, could you kind of outline the 4 or 5 basic attributes that you will be grading us on? So if you're not being given a rubric, you are, I think, owed a rubric. Oh, retcon reaction? When something new contradicts what you know. Oh, okay. Thank you, Brandon. I did not know that word. Thank you. I'm going to have to look that up after the chat. That is a new one on me. Okay, Leslie. Viva en Brasil. Quando fue muy joya. So when you were living in Brazil, you experienced great joy in your life as well. I agree, Leslie. Brazilians, by and large, at least the ones I met during my 2 weeks there, had a kind of zest for life. We're not burdened by a lot of the same cares, worries. We're not bogged down by a lot of the trivial things that Americans get bogged down to. For Brazilians, I always felt like joy came before work. And for Americans, it's often the opposite. And that was one of the great things I learned from the ambassador as well. Living in Brazil brought me great joy, I believe. Is that a correct translation? One day for grammar. Okay, Salama, thank you very much. Salama, tell me what aspects of grammar you wish me to cover. Use of articles, irregular verbs, the prepositions of and in, um, subject-verb agreement, faulty pronoun reference. Give me a sense, Salama, of what areas of grammar you would like me to cover. Oh, that was Spanish. Okay, I thought that was Spanish. Well, thank you, Brandon. Thank you very much. Of course, it's never too late. Uh, what level are you in, Brandon? Are you an undergraduate, graduate student? Are you still a secondary student? What level are you in? Because that makes a lot of difference in um, how I would approach uh, some of these other topics. I mean, when you talk about what teachers like and don't like, there's a big difference between high school teachers and college and graduate level teachers, and a difference in how you would approach them. I think one is more formal than the other. Basically, what I'm saying. Leslie, I learned what grammar I know, doctor. So, in other words, you kind of learned it on your own, Leslie, as opposed to a more formal study in school. It sounds like that you might be someone who was learning or exposed to a number of different languages when you were young. And unless those different languages get sorted out, uh, that could possibly be, an area of confusion. Although I have to say, it doesn't seem like you have any of that in what I've seen so far. Oh, you learned what you know about grammar from Spanish. That's a very good point. Let me put that up, everyone. That is a very good point. And here is why, Leslie. Any grammar that you're taught as a native speaker in most public schools approaches grammar as if you're a native speaker. It has a very different kind of take on grammar. It's more about usage, more about politeness and political correctness. However, when you study a new language, you have to study that language from a non-native speaker's viewpoint. And you must have the grammar because you have no internalization for the language. For example, that chart that I showed you guys, let me put that up again real quick. If you look at this chart, now to learn that to learn that, excuse me, let me start over. As a native speaker, you do not have to learn that. You internalize it as you become fluent in English from an early age. However, if you were to study English as if you were studying Spanish, you would have to have all of this grammar explained to you. So the difference, Leslie, is for native speakers, grammar is not taught. For non-native speakers, it must be taught. When you took Spanish, you were taking it pretty much as a non-native speaker. Therefore, you had to have the internal grammar of the language explained to you. Leslie, you want to become certified in? Oh, terrific, terrific. There are lots of great certifications available out there. The kind of gold standard is the one taught in Cambridge, and you have to be on site for that certification. However, there are many online certifications that are quite good and financially doable. I got my certification from ITTT, the International Training for TESOL and TOEFL. I did it fully online, and it didn't take that long either. The one course was 120 hours. That was the basic course. And the other course, certification course, which was teaching English online, was 60 hours. So 180 hours for my two certifications. They're entirely doable, Leslie. Because of your background in these different languages, you would be an outstanding TOEFL, TIFL, ESOL teacher because you have that kind of perspective. Oh, don't. Typing does not count in chats, Leslie. Okay, Salama. Salama wants regular verbs, verb usage, and there it is so complex, Salama. There are 12 different verb tenses in English. 12. It is the most complex area of English when it comes to English grammar. Structure is a little bit easier to handle because there are really only kind of, I'd say, like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 basic rules for structuring English. Did you know, Salama, that 90% of all English utterances are based upon the subject, verb, object pattern? If you have that pattern down, subject, verb, object, and you use it to form simple sentences, subject, verb, object, Jackie kicked the football. We can make them more complex. The researchers found no discrepancies. If you can just construct those simple subject, verb, object sentences, you will have mastered 90% of English. Try not to write long sentences. The shorter your sentences are, the closer the subject and verb are together, the more clear and understandable your sentences will be. That's my kind of overview of structure of English sentences. Verbs are a different case altogether. Did you have any particular area, like distinguishing between simple past and the perfect tenses? Is it the progressive tenses, the future tenses? Is there any one that you would like me to focus on? And I'm happy to do that, Salama, and I appreciate the request and the question very much. Yes, Daniel, by all means, please type it in. Commas are the window dressing of our writing. Commas, there are rules for commas, but many authors also use commas in a highly personal way in order to get the kind of cadence and pauses and emphasis that they desire. So by all means, please type that in. Leslie has her undergraduate degree in English literature. So do I, by the way, Leslie. And her master's in curriculum development. Very interesting. Very interesting. So you are in the curriculum development area in school? Are you a classroom teacher? Are you in the curriculum development staff? That kind of thing. Art, Mosqueda, thank you. Art, thank you for your warm hello. I appreciate you coming by. If you have any questions, Art, please feel free to punch them in the comment section. Okay, here's Daniel's question. Okay. This is highly personalized. Here is what is happening. You have two sentences. The first sentence is, people had always seen me as an outsider. That's sentence number one. Sentence number two is, because of that, you have an introductory phrase or clause, they were always shutting down my attempts to connect. So you have two sentences joined by a coordinating conjunction, and. So the comma before the and is correct because a comma always comes between a coordinating conjunction, for and yet, but yet, nor so. Always comes before a coordinating conjunction that joins two complete sentences. And the comma after that is correct because a comma always separates introductory words and phrases that precede the subject of the sentence. The subject of the second sentence is they. And so you've got a phrase there that precedes it. Now, this writer took kind of a shortcut. A more formal way to punctuate that would be and, comma, because of that, comma, they were always shutting me out. But there is a trend today in American publishing to reduce comma usage as much as you can. Semicolons you rarely see today. Periods are preferred instead of semicolons today. But there's a kind of informal way of punctuating the sentence without the comma after the and a formal way of punctuating it. Oh, Leslie is working as a contractor. That's great. Get to work at home, right? I'm assuming you're more or less freelance. Brandon writes, but some great writers are able, yes, absolutely. Lemony Snicker and J.K. Rowling. And I would also say William Faulkner. I went to the University of Mississippi for my doctorate degree because they had, that's where Faulkner's home was. They had the Faulkner Institute. And at the time, Faulkner's biographer taught there. And the rules of punctuation meant nothing to Faulkner. They were there for his convenience to say what he wanted to say. And in fiction, that's something that we expect. That's a kind of creativity that we expect. Academic writing is different. In academic writing, you are being much more analytical, and therefore punctuation needs to be more standardized. So I would make those distinctions between academic writing and creative writing. Oh, you're welcome, Daniel. I hope that helped. Daniel, may I ask why you were concerned about it? Is there something that puzzled you or whatever? Oh, Leslie had offices in Arlington. I see. So before the pandemic, you had to commute every day. Here's a question for you, Leslie. Many workers who were forced to work at home because of the pandemic are part of companies where they're more or less being told, stay at home. And those companies are saving money by closing offices and office space. That is true at the school where I teach full time, which is the University of Maryland Global Campus. UMGC has huge buildings on the University of Maryland campus, and they are now closing the building that served the online portion entirely. And they're telling everybody, stay at home. So to me, that's a wonderful development. People can have better lives and be more productive. There is a huge drawback to remote working, and that is it's hard to close the office door. Remote workers tend to work many more hours than office workers. Oh, Leslie's contract calls for on-site. Okay. They might change. Okay, any other questions that I can help you guys with? We have some requests, and the requests are about grammar from Salama, regular verbs, structure of English. I believe Brandon had a request for punctuation. I will tell you guys what I'm working on now. I'm just finishing, I have about 4 more days. The second tips video. The first one was 5 tips to improve your writing. I'm finishing up the second 5 tips. I'm going to divide them into 10 little tips. So I'm going to do that the rest of the week. Then I promised a video on how to write a research proposal. And then I will take other requests. So Salama, I will fulfill your request for a focus on regular verbs and sentence structure in English. I will fulfill that request here in the chat, if that's okay, because I do have to work on these other videos. Well, yeah, thank you, Leslie. Yeah, it is. I think it's the second ranked state university system in America. I think California is number 1, and I think Maryland's number 2. Oh, Brandon. Okay, I'm sorry, Brandon. That must have been somebody else, or maybe I'm remembering from a conversation we had. Mukesh. Okay, Mukesh has a request. Oh, live on YouTube. Yes, Mukesh. Every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern United States time, or 7 p.m. UTC time. I think it must be 7 a.m. for you, Mukesh. Is that correct? Brandon, overcoming writer's block. Okay. I have a video on overcoming writer's block, Brandon. So I will bring that video in to the chat, and we can go over it. How about that? Sushmitha. Devaki Rubai. That sounds like you are from India. Oh, what videos did you use, Leslie? Because some of them might have been mine. I have a video on how to write a research paper summary, so it might have been mine. Okay, so I think I have my marching orders. We're going to cover verbs. We're going to cover English sentence structure, and we're going to cover overcoming writer's block. All right. And those are in future chats. And again, for anyone just joining us, I chat on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. my time, which is Eastern U.S. time. And I'm not sure what part of India that you guys are from. Let's say you are in Calcutta. Time right now in Calcutta, it's 11:27 p.m. Okay. So Calcutta's kind of in the middle, right? India, of course, is a subcontinent, so you have a lot of time zones. So 10 p.m. So you're a little bit east of Calcutta. Okay. So Mukesh, that's not a bad time for you, I'm assuming. 10 p.m. Okay. My friends and dear students, thank you very, very much for coming by and sharing parts of your life, and also for your wonderful questions and requests. I'm here every Wednesday to try to reply to those questions and those requests. So to make your English adventures more successful and more pleasant. So I'm going to go ahead and shut it down now. And I will see you guys next week. As always, if you have any questions, please just ask a comment on my channel and I will get back to you in 24 hours or less. Okay. Talk to you later. Okay. Thank you, Mukesh. I hope to see you again then real soon, next Wednesday.